Welcome to another episode of Life Changing Challengers. I'm really excited, guys. You're not going to believe the stories that we are going to hear today. This is Arlene Cohen Miller. She is what she calls a work-life balance and harmony coach. But when we get into this, you are not going to believe it. But this woman is absolutely amazing. She started her career as a lawyer, and she has her AV rating. And I'm going to tell you right now, go Google AV rating for lawyers, and you're going to see these are the highest of ability, highest of ethics. Yes, ethics. I know that you probably never hear me say that, lawyer and ethics in the same sentence, but I just did. I mean, and especially with the political atmosphere going on right now. But no, this woman has the highest of ethics and the highest of abilities, and we're going to hear all about it. Arlene, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. So, Arlene, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Maybe what was the complement of your family? Where did you grow up? And what was it like to be Arlene as a kid?
That's a lot. So I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. After I graduated from law school, I moved up to Cleveland, Ohio with my then husband, and everyone sort of in the legal profession sort of teased me unmercifully. So how I was speaking. So in order to practice law in Ohio, I had to let it go. I am the oldest of three. I have a brother that's 2 years younger than me, and he's a partner in UBS in Louisville and does great investment stuff. My baby brother is 12 years younger than me. He lives in Singapore with his wife, and he does all kinds of broadcast shows, and just a really interesting guy. So that's my family. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. Her parents were quite poor, and she sort of felt like she'd made it to stay at home. And most of the mothers in my community when I was growing up were stay-at-home moms. It's a very different world. And I had a pretty uneventful childhood. My father was an entrepreneur. His parents came over from Russia when they were the first generation, maybe the second generation. But anyway, they were in the movie theater business, and that's what he went into after college. And then he decided to go off on his own. And he had his own business called Standard Vendors, where he sold candy and cotton candy and popcorn and all the vending machines to movie theaters and schools, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. And so I think I got my entrepreneurial spirit from him.
Wow. Okay. And your dad's doing vending machines? Oh my God, you must have been in heaven.
The best part was he would bring on these huge bags of popcorn. There's a lady that came in and fresh popcorn once a week. And he would bring home these huge bags of popcorn. Or when I was in high school, I worked with him occasionally. And I would always try to get there on the day that she popped popcorn because the whole place smelled great. And of course, I would get some free popcorn. And yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
Oh my God. So let me just tell you this anecdote real quick. When I lived in Arizona, I was looking to get into a business. And a friend of mine brought up this idea. It was a popcorn vending machine where when you put your dollars into it, it would expressly pop it and then drop it into a bag. So literally you put the thing in, the corn would drop into this thing, it would heat it up with oil, then it would pop the popcorn, put it into a bag. The ingenious part was that at the top, there was a fan that blew out to not only cool the machine, but blow the aroma everywhere to entice more buyers. That to me was the ingenious part. Unfortunately, tried to get a VC to get that off, and I just graduated from college. It didn't actually work out, but I thought it was a great idea. You mentioning popcorn brings back memories. But anyway, okay, so you lost your accent, which is
Southern accent, if I choose. But I don't really choose because people just, there aren't that many no one really speaks Southern around here. So
it's super interesting because I am in the South. I mean, literally, I'm in the South of the South, and this is not really the South. You don't find a lot of people that actually have a Southern accent out here unless they actually transplant it from somewhere else. So, all right. So you grew up in Louisville. You went to high school in Louisville?
Yeah, I graduated from Ballard High School and went to high school, went everything all the way through.
Oh, nice. Were you in any extracurriculars, sports, or anything like that?
I didn't really start working out until I got to be a freshman in college. I was just really skinny, and I was, I guess, more interested in boys than I was in working out, so I really didn't do that. I did play the guitar when I was younger. I'd sort of gave that up, but Yeah, I did that. And I just hung out with my girlfriends. I was a pretty normal kid.
Hey, you were normal. There's nothing wrong with that because you rose to excellence. So I got no problem about that. But that's great. You had a good time and you were skinny, even with probably all the treats in your garage from your dad's business. But so obviously you were able to control yourself. That was good,
No.
except for the mounds of popcorn that you ate. But, it's actually a low calorie snack. So that's cool. All right. So you went to college and did you go to college in Ohio? Did you go to college in Kentucky? Then you went to Ohio.
First, I went to Ohio Wesleyan in Delaware, Ohio, and then I transferred to Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia for the last 3 years of my universities to get my political science degree. I was dating someone new was at Emory and I wanted to go be with him. So my parents let me transfer and I really loved Atlanta. I loved both of the universities, but Atlanta has a special place in my heart.
I'm sure it does. Interesting enough. So if you we probably did because you seem to be very, very detail oriented, but I'm actually an endurance coach and I'm also an athlete. And I did do the Ironman Ohio 70.3, which is like it used to be called a half Ironman. I like call it 70.3, which is done at Ohio Wesleyan.
Wow. I didn't know anything big happened at Ohio Wesleyan.
Yes. And the last quarter mile is done on the track at Ohio Wesleyan.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? Oh my God.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And my grandparents spent 30 years in a suburb of Cleveland, Beechwood, Ohio, right outside of Chicago.
Yeah, I know Beechwood. Yeah, we lived in the east side for Cleveland Heights for a while. Then we moved to Rocky River. And later I lived in Lakewood. It just felt, the west side of Cleveland felt more like the south and the east side felt more like New York and New Jersey. We were kind of like fish out of water. So anyway, it's a really cool place to live.
I would spend a week with my grandparents and it was all about playing and going to the pool and finding things to do, going to Cedar Point in Sandusky.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was some great times, some great memories. So then you ended up going to law school in Ohio as well.
No, I went to University of Kentucky. I went back home to, which is in Lexington. It's a beautiful place in the country. You have a lot of horse farms there. And I mean, you have the city there as well, but it's a beautiful place to go to school. That's where I went.
Yeah. I don't know much about law school. I actually was accepted at one point, but the finance side of it just didn't work out for me. But is there I hear all the things from television, like law review and legal studies, judgeships and all that stuff. Did you get to enjoy any part of that?
No, I was a pretty ignorant student in law school. I wasn't like law review or anything at the top. I was just sort of like in the middle of the pack. And I mean, in hindsight, I went straight from, university to law school. And the one kind of opportunity that I felt like I missed in my life is I really felt a strong calling to like take a year off and like get a year-long pass and go through Europe and be a waitress and just not do anything that was really mental. But it would have broken my father's heart, for me to go that far away. And there wasn't cell phones back then. So I just sort of sucked it up and went to law school. But I was kind of burnt out. It would have been a better thing for me to have taken a year off. But, my then to-be husband was up there. And so I had him there too. And I was sort of the middle of the pack at University of Kentucky College of Law.
You're with me. I was never the top of anything. I was middle of the pack the whole time and we were both successful. So it doesn't really matter once you get out. And obviously you have done wonders. So I just don't want to discourage anybody from that. I mean, we all can't be top of the line. We just be the best we possibly can. For school wise, I always thought no matter where you are, once you get out, it don't matter. It really doesn't matter. I work with people that have had degrees from Harvard and Yale and stuff like that, and I surpassed them. So once you got out of school, it don't really matter. So you end up with this law degree. What was the first thing you did? Because I know that you only spent 3 years outside of law school before you decided to hang your own shingle. So what happened?
Yeah. Well, I took my ex went up to Cleveland. We graduated from medical school the same year I graduated from law school. He was doing a residency at the Cleveland Clinic. He went ahead of me. I stayed back and took the Kentucky bar. And then I came up to Ohio and I was like, I'm going law up here. So I worked as a law clerk for a little bit and then I took the Ohio bar and passed it. And after working for a solo attorney in a medium-sized law firm during that time, I just wanted to go out on my own. I guess I had my father's blood in me, and I really couldn't find a law firm that I was working for. There is a bias in the law. If you are top of your law school class, it's a lot easier to get hired by a big firm or a medium-sized firm. It does hold a lot of weight. And people that graduated from certain schools that were very prestigious have other people from those same schools ruled me out. And I just I'm going to open my own law firm. And so I did. I was 29 and didn't know what I was doing. I found a storefront office in Lakewood, Ohio, which is my first western suburb of Cleveland. There were 2 attorneys there that had their own office. One attorney owned the building. There was an employment agency and a really nice guy who became a good friend of mine who sold collection packages to businesses to help them collect their debts. And so that's where I started off my practice of law. I literally had a desk, a chair, a couch, a typewriter. And then after I was in practice for a month and put up my shingle, I found out I was pregnant. And yes, those things got really interesting from there.
I only could imagine. So finally, you settle in, entrepreneurial spirit's going crazy. What did you say?
When I was working for other attorneys, I did 2 things. One was family law. And basically, I was doing all the work behind the scenes. I wasn't actually going into court, except for some really small things. I learned family law, divorce, dissolution of marriage, child custody, and stuff like that. The other thing that I learned working for other attorneys was collection law. The attorney that I mainly worked for did both of those things. And, he helped businesses collect their debt. So that's the 2 things that I ended up doing as well.
Did you enjoy it?
Family law was hard. I started doing it at 25. I was 29. I came from the suburbs. I had never experienced anything like that. So yeah, it was kind of flabbergasted. It was hard. I did the work. I was appointed by the court for a little bit of time to represent children in cases where one or both of the parents had alcohol or drug problems and, what we're going to do. And yeah, a lot of the parents, I guess maybe I just attracted to myself, but a lot of the parents would put the kids in between themselves and not really look at the best interest of the kids. It was a real culture shock for me. And so after 12 years of that, I was like, I'm done. And I just focused on commercial law, which is helping businesses collect their debts, which is really fun. People deserve to be paid. And it was pretty straightforward work. And I enjoyed it. We traveled a lot. There was a lot of business meetings around the country. So we get to go to all different kind of neat places with conventions. And I did a lot of leadership positions in the organizations we were involved with. And I really, really enjoyed all of that.
Did you spend any time in court with collections law or?
Quite frankly, my area of expertise that I ended up doing that I loved, because I sold my practice in Ohio when my son was 9 and we moved out to Colorado and bought into a small boutique firm that just did collection law. And I ended up being the marketing person and the person on the phone mostly that was settling cases because I loved doing that. I really didn't want to go to court and do all that stuff. And so we had associates. We had 2 associates and they did that work. Very grateful for that. They were excellent at it. And I had the opportunity, as an attorney to do what I loved, which was not practicing law a whole lot, but some.
Excellent. So just for some people that are listening, because not everything is what you see on television, right? The only thing we see on television are things that are exciting, right? Shoots, they do all this stuff in the boardroom and then they go to the court and they did have this big thing. But most lawyers don't actually go to court all that often, just like yourself. Isn't that correct?
Well, it really depends what kind of work you're doing. Most of the time, you're going to make more money and serve your clients better if you know how to negotiate settlements and resolve it for them. If you're a personal injury attorney, you might be going to court more. It really depends on what kind of work, what kind of clients you attract. And for divorce work, it was really an interesting thing because a lot of the attorneys when I was practicing were very antagonistic towards each other, and they would not want to resolve cases so that they could have higher fees. Not all of them. There were just a few bad eggs in the bunch that really made it sort of difficult for the rest of us who just wanted to serve our client, get something worked out within their means, and let them go forth and live their lives.
That's super interesting. So, I mentioned at the top of the show that you are AV rated. How does that work?
Well, the way it works is, at least from my experience of it, is that I became pretty well known in the collections industry and loved doing the work. And we went to business meetings all over the country, like every single one of them. We were active members of a couple of collection industries that brought all the people together, all the players, the collection agencies, the attorneys, the people that brought them together, and became pretty well known in that. And we also did went to some business meetings overseas. And so basically, you just ask people in your industry if you will support me to move to AB rated status. And if you get people that appreciate what you do, think you're worth it, and will support you in that endeavor, then you can get AB rated. And so that's what I did.
Like I said, for everybody listening, I don't usually do that either, but Google it, because you should see there's actually different ratings. And Arlene is rated the highest, meaning the highest ability and the highest of ethics. So, it's obviously she's got to be recognized for that. And she was. So I would say, if it was me and I was looking for a player, I would find somebody that was AB rated. So, because most likely you're not going to get screwed, because Arlene just told you about people that would keep cases going so they could keep getting fees. So, and that's somebody that we don't want. On average, what did you end up spending as far as hours in a week? When you were at the top inside of Colorado, how many hours a week were you spending in the office and working on cases?
Well, I didn't do it like a normal person because my son was
marketing.
Well, my partner and I would go to these things together when we would market. And so that was working. You would go to cocktail parties and business meetings, and you go to shows and be on boats, and you cruise and talk to people. So that was part of your job. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. We had friends from all over the country, and it was like a family. You come to these meetings and catch up with what everyone was doing. And I was really blessed to be in that kind of community and to find those kind of groups, because they're not doing very well anymore. A lot of it is falling apart. So yeah, we did that, and I could take my son with me to some of the stuff, and he got to see some pretty cool things, stay in hotel rooms and eat hotel food, and then I'd slip out from some meetings and show him around the city. So I didn't do things conventionally. I had a son, so, I might pick him up and take him to school and spend a little time with him and then bring some work home. I never really kept track of hours, but I'm sure I put in, 40 to 50 hour week, but I did it my way.
Right. So even though you're having a great time, it still can get kind of stressful, correct?
Yes. Practice the law, I found stressful.
What did you do to combat that?
Well, I'm an athlete like you. So for years, I injured myself when I was in my 40s, but I was doing some half marathons, and in some of them in the mountains. So it was really hard, and a bunch of 5Ks and 10Ks. And I also was a runner in triathlons when you have like a team. So I did that when I was did you do that too?
Well, no, I'm just excited because obviously most of the time people start when they're younger, and you said that you weren't an athlete younger. Most of the time,
well, I started when I was 19. One of my best friends in my first year of college at Ohio Wesleyan, her brother was a senior, and he found me running when they were, I don't know how he did it, but I mean, he was flirting with me, but he wasn't really going to date his, sister's friends. But I thought, well, I can do that. So I started running when I was my freshman year of college. Yeah.
That's me. I mean, I started running, moved into triathlon, and you went into triathlon, but you were doing relays? Is that what you were basically what you were saying?
It was a full triathlon, but I just did running.
Okay.
And I had another friend did the swimming.
Right. Yeah. And today that's a relay. Somebody does the swimming, pass it off to the biker goes biking, and then they pass it up. Yeah. So, but that's fantastic. I'm about to do my first relay on triathlon. I usually do it all, but actually in next month, about 6 weeks, I'm doing I'm going to do a triathlon as a relay. I've never done. So, and I'm actually going to do the bike, which is not my strongest suit, but no, I'm excited about that. But that's just awesome that that you ran, and you did it in Colorado. That's tough.
It is, because I started running in Cleveland, and I was crazy. I was running in the winters when it was snowing and cold, and I would still go out, but I was young. And then I came out to Colorado, and it's I could run like a whole minute and a half faster in Cleveland at sea level than when I came here. It was very, very humbling. But, a lot of people come out to Colorado to train, because of the mountains and the terrain and everything. So even though you couldn't go as fast, nobody else could go as fast either. So it was, I really enjoyed all of that.
No, I did a couple of my certifications in Boulder. So
Oh, what?
yeah, so when I was in Boulder, I got it. I passed Frank Shorter on the trail over by, I forgot the name of it. It's been so long, but there's a major trail that runs through there. And I was running on it before class and I passed Frank Shorter. It was a very, very cool place. But yeah, absolutely. So go out and train in Boulder and then come back down to sea level and you're faster. You're absolutely
Very much faster.
yes. I would love to be able to have the ability to spend 3-4 months in Boulder, train out there, and then come and race at sea level. I think it would be great. It'd be amazing. But you took on yoga at some point, right?
Well, I didn't listen to my body and I ended up with injury from my piriformis muscle to the inside of my knee, both sides. And I literally had to sit on the little inner tubes you do after you have a baby, for months. It took me quite a while to recover. And I just started doing that Bikram hot yoga, that 90-minute hot yoga. I did that for like 15 years. Now I do power, vinyasa, and sculpt, and bar, and hot yoga. There's something else I'm doing now too. But anyway, my yoga school has all of that. And that's what my body needs now. So it doesn't really want for pounding anymore. And you can stay in really good shape with all of that stuff too. So that's what I enjoy now.
I loved Bikram. And obviously they don't even call it Bikram anymore. They call it something else.
No, they don't. They call it hot yoga.
And yeah, he got in trouble for sexual harassment or something. But when it was Bikram, that was my introduction to yoga too. And basically it was that it really helped me recover. So I would work out 6 days a week. And then on Sunday at noon, I still remember when I first started this, I would go and do hot yoga. And it was frustrating at first, but when I got done, it was ridiculous how good you felt. Like the first 4 or 5 weeks, it was hell. It was hot. You didn't get used to it right away. And you're slipping and sliding because and then finally, but after my body started to get used to it and I started getting my flexibility and the whole bit, it was amazing. And then you were done, your body just let go of all those toxins. And when you walked out of that hot room into the cooler air, you were just like, wow, what a difference. Yeah. Amazing.
I have a pretty amazing flexibility because of all that. And I just love it. But now I just sort of expanded out to other areas because I think it's important to get your arms and your core really strong. And I don't think that kind of yoga helps that much with it. I really like the sculpt because you get to work with weights and stuff like that. But I love it all. And I love the community. It's a really cool, the yoga community is really pretty cool. You just need some really lovely people that are passionate about what you're passionate about.
Yeah, and very accepting, very accepting. There's no real, there's no real judgment that goes on anywhere. Because that was obviously, as a guy, we have an intense ego, no matter who the guy is. So you go into these classes and the first time you go, you're like, looking around and they're going, oh my gosh, he's doing that so much better than I am. Or you're going to stand there and you're like, oh no, I can get deeper. I can get deeper. And then you end up hurting yourself,
Mm-hmm.
But all of a sudden you find that as you talk to people, they're like, yeah, it's your practice. And that's what you learn is it's your practice, not anybody else's. And there's nothing, you are not doing yourself any favors by trying to go deeper or longer or whatever than anybody else. Because it's your practice. It's very personal.
Yeah.
And so I agree. I agree there. And what did you end up expanding out to besides the sculpting and everything else? Did you go into the mental aspect for a while, right?
Is it what aspect?
The mental aspect.
Well, the mindset, I guess I meant more the spiritual bent with my stuff. But I mean, those are the kinds of yoga that I practice now. But yeah, I guess with the work-life balance and harmony coaching, which is what I do now, where I help people is like from the inside out. It's like, because there's like life hacks and work hacks and mom hacks and all sorts of ways that you can organize yourself and have more time and all that kind of stuff. But if you're still anxious and stressed and overwhelmed and maybe a little bit burnt out on the inside, you need to deal with those things, or you're not going to really change on the outside. So I guess that's what I help people do because, as an attorney, it's like it never ends. There's always something to do. And I guess that's the stressful part about it. And you're dealing with other people's lives and other people's money, and they're not always at their best when, they have, money problems or family problems, and they're looking to you to make it all better like it once was. And that's not always possible. And so, yeah, I found, the practice of law stressful. And I also began to get into all of this because when I got divorced, my son was 3 and he developed like ADHD, and I wanted to help him, and I didn't know how, and I didn't want to just put him on drugs. And so I learned a bunch of healing modalities. I studied all that kind of stuff too, but it just really helped me. I was pretty much a thinking left brain person, and the yoga and working with different healing modalities and getting more in touch with my spiritual side sort of developed the right brain. So it really helped to balance me out. I mean, working out did too, because gosh, when you go running after the first mile or so, you're just in a different place. Right. And the same thing with yoga. It feels like, because all the breath work that's involved in yoga, you can just really like let go and let the rest of the world go when you're doing your practice. And so this was just another aspect of that.
Yeah. So after you develop the fitness, right, it takes a minute for you. You've got to be in the moment in your running while you're gaining the fitness part. But for me, and at least most of the clients I've found, once they're able to the point where they can run 6 miles straight, and it doesn't matter the pace, even if it's easy pace, but you get to that point where you've got the endurance to go 6 miles. At that point, you can shut your brain off from the running part, and you can pretty much think about anything but running. And that's what I used to tell everybody. I'm like, all right, you guys can go sit in your on your pillows with your legs crossed and your arms and ohms and stuff like that. Me, I just go running, because as soon as I get, just like you said, as soon as you get past that first mile and you go into flow, I can meditate on the run.
Yeah. And the spiritual stuff, I mean, because a lot of people don't want to meditate or whatever, because that's when they think you have to sit there for 5 hours and go. That's not true. You can do a walking meditation, not do it the athletic way, but just go out there and really appreciate the beauty of nature and breathe and take it all in, and just take yourself from anxiety to rest and relax mode. So there's lots of ways to, like have a walking meditation, or just do some breath work, or just feel things that you're grateful for, that you can just take that stress level and let it go. And I do help people with that, because, we're taught about it intellectually, but not really how to feel it and have a different kind of experience with it.
I agree. There's been a lot of trending going on nowadays where habit that people are starting to come by, and it's been trending now for a few years. The first thing you do in the morning is you get up, go work out. There's also a trend of get up, coffee, do something mental, and then you go outside and walk for 10 to 15 minutes. Part of it is getting sunlight into your eyes, which is supposed to help out your circadian rhythm, because the idea behind it is, in the nervous system. So that when the sunlight hits your eyes, it triggers your brain and your circadian rhythm to, it wakes you up. But what it also does is trigger that you are in daylight. So then when night drops, you automatically start to relax. So as soon as it starts to get dark, you start to relax, because your brain is already telling you, okay, it's starting to wind down, it's starting to go to sleep. So by getting that sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning, energizes you for the day, and then it'll start bringing down your serotonin levels and euphoria. The euphoria, everything else is starting to bung down, because your body's telling you that, okay, it's getting ready. You're getting ready to go to bed and sleep. So there's a few people out there that's touting that. So, and I think that walk, that 10, 15 minute walk in the morning, that's meditation.
Yeah. I mean, you can make anything you want. I mean, you could be washing your dishes and meditating. In other words, you're just fully present in your body. You're grounded in your body. You're fully present here now. You're not worrying about the future. You're not running your finger or being remorseful about the past. You're just fully present in the moment, washing the dishes, maybe even being grateful that you've got dishes to wash and make food to eat. And that can be a meditative tool. So, one of my friends, every time she walks through a doorway, it's not just plowing through, it's just like, when she just sort of floats through the doorway, she makes that part of her meditative experience just to stay fully present in this moment and not sort of waffle off over here or over there where you can go into worry or anxiety. And she's one of the most chill people I've ever met in my life. There are many ways to meditate. And she's told me about this for years. I haven't adopted it, but I've watched her working with it and it works. So she's on to something there.
Well, we're going to have to look into that. So you have a numerous amount of certifications from life coaching groups. I didn't even want to get into all of them because there's a ton of them. You're a senior coach from the Global Coaching Academy, International Coaching Federation Level 2. You're Cert 4 in Coaching and Mentoring from Global Coaching, Diploma from Transformational Holistic Counseling in Australia. Oh my God. I mean, you just go on and on and on. What made you start to go into to take that route into life coaching and see where you got to the point where you are today?
Well, I had a couple of amazing women friends, and both of them started their own school. One in Australia and they went through all the training that thought that training was fantastic, but they just felt like there should be more heart in it, and that there should be more like a huge compassionate is all than nothing. More technical stuff. And one of them got her, the coaching degree, and one got the whole of the counseling degree, and they both opened their own schools. And so the one with coaching degree was tried for a while to get me to come and get a diploma in coaching and mentoring. And I was a little bit arrogant. And I sort of was like, I have a political science degree, a BA in Emory, and I'm a law degree from Kentucky. I'm practicing law. I have my own business. I don't need to go back to school. But I realized that the training that I had we had all of it. And I was negotiating settlement. I was marketing. I had a teenage son. I had people that were working for me, and I'm like, I'm a really nice people. And, I could really benefit from the training, to go deeper and to be able to hold a bigger space with people. So while I was still practicing law in the second law firm in Colorado, I got a diploma in Portland and one thing from the school in Australia. I really, really appreciate the training that it gave me. And I'm still like a tutor and a mentor coach in the Global Coaching Academy. So I get the joy of working with students that are going through training, and I will tutor them and help them to get out into the real world when they start their pro bono sessions of coaching people out in real life. I just view you as a tremendous because of this level. And so I development this very dissertation.
You went ahead and you parlayed that into your business that's now called the Jewel Consultancy. Your specialty is the work-life balance. What made you move into that realm and start to specialize in that niche?
Because, I guess my past is very I'm 9 years old and pregnant, and all my family was in Kentucky, and all my colleagues were in that area of the world, and I didn't have anybody. I had to sort of build my own father made one. And I don't know anything about this. Then I never hold it called. You know how to transport, see how this is a lot of different places that people have to go in and go on. And so for that, because I didn't have anyone there back then. And so that's I guess why I ended up doing that. And everything when they help people and it's unclear they fall on override and bully they have to be they just really fall.
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, so you basically parlayed something that you need in your own life into helping others. And that is the greatest gift. I mean, you were already helping people as a lawyer, right? You were focused on helping people, which, lawyers give a bad name for the people like you, that are the good ones.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's an amazing story. And the fact that you were able to swallow your pride, from being, like you had mentioned before that you felt like you were, a little arrogant. but you actually learn.
Well,
You know,
it took me a while, but I realized that my head was a dark place. It's pretty arrogant to think that I didn't need any more further training and stuff like that. It took me a while.
it doesn't matter. It's the fact that you did, that you saw it, right? And that's a lot of things that people don't understand. People aren't self-actualized, where they could sit there and they could be honest with themselves and they look in the mirror and go, like, I mean, it sounds negative, but I use it as a positive. Man, there's times in the morning, like I've been getting up at 4 a.m. for years. And my thing is that, and I give myself an hour and a half to do some mental stuff and hygiene and take care of my cats. Don't know about that. But when it's 5:15 and I'm thinking, okay, I want to be out of the house by 5:30 because I want to get 2 hours in before I got to think about going to work. Just have that stuff. Even though I'm up, coffee's in me, I'm ready to go. I'm like, doing that today. And I can just look in the mirror and go, you wimp, you wimp. You haven't missed the workout and so, one that's strategic. I have strategic days off, right? For recovery. But those days when you don't have it and you got to go out, it's be self-actualized enough to sit there and say, you're just being wimpy. You just need to get out there, take that first step, get the heart pumping, you'll be fine. Don't cave into that. And that's, you self-actualize, knowing that that's how I'm feeling. And then I know that I can get out the side. And you were self-actualized enough to say, you might be a little arrogant about this. You kind of like learn to listen and maybe going to this coaching tank felt so bad. And you realize that now you took that and you parlayed it into something where you get to help even more people.
And I did have some friends there that were gently hinting to me that I might have my head up a dark place and this might be very good for me. So I am very grateful for it, for those two women friends.
You think this trend of gratefulness is helpful for people?
What do you think? I mean, because if we're feeling grateful, it's not being wrong. What was the foundation to it's like when it's feeling like that, you have feeling very and your heart is expanded, you're more outlet bigger instead of all contracted with fear. And more. And I think people make an effect of that to be grateful, not pay one. You think that you have to accomplish that before you can be grateful. Well, there's all sorts. It's like you can be grateful for your cats. You can be grateful for the fact that even if you're a little bit grumpy, you don't want to take that first step, you get out and take the step, and by about the 30th step, you're beginning to feel different. You can be grateful for the fresh water and a nice bed to sleep in or a hot shower. All those little things. You can get more of in your life. I'm sure you know that as an endurance coach. I have people to focus on.
Yes. And this whole idea of a gratitude journal, I think is a really amazing idea. I've kept one now for a while. And I used to feel like it was a waste of time because I was grateful for the same things all the time. And then I realized that, so what if you're grateful for the same things? You're not trying to this is for me. This isn't for anybody else. And I thought, oh, well, how much can we be grateful for the same things? Or blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? You should think of something a little bit better. But even though I was repeating some things, all of a sudden I'd be in the moment somewhere and I'm like, hey, I'm grateful for the fact that I have the ability to wrap my fingers around a pen and place it to paper. I got to that point where I was able to think about that and then look outside into the environment and go, there's a lot of people that can't. There's people without hands. There's people without fingers. You have the ability to be grateful to that for them. It's the same thing, There's a lot of times I run for people and I think about all the people that can't run, missing a leg, they got spinal issues, they've got a disease, they've got multiple sclerosis, they got muscular dystrophy, whatever that stuff. So I'm grateful that I can run for them. One of my first episodes, a mother-daughter, and the daughter had everything going for her, like top grades, graduated from Yale, and she happened to be in Colombia on a internship, and the internship was 3 quarters, and she was in between her first and second quarter, and her and a girlfriend decided to go whitewater rafting. and they went water rafting. They're having a great time. They pulled over to the side to take a break, doing the right thing by not tiring themselves out. They went over to the side, and they pulled the raft up, and they were sitting down, and a boulder came loose and crushed her. And from that point on, she has problem walking. She had head trauma, TBI, the whole bit. And she literally spent almost a year. She had to fly to Bogota, then Bogota to Miami. She spent a couple years in Miami, then finally got up here to Tampa. And now she's doing better, but she'll never be the same. But every year that she does a race and somebody pushes her in her mobile wheelchair, she gets a thrill out of that. She gets absolute thrill. And I think I get a thrill out of pushing her. Or I would get a thrill out of pushing her. So I want to do that one of these days. And I had a great pick for that.
Well, and that's really cool.
Yeah. I think what it did is it made me see other things. Like I said, the idea that I can grasp a pen and put it to paper. I'm grateful for that. Grateful that I have a voice to do this podcast.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to get your take on that. And I think that's amazing what you said about opening up. So how long has it been that you've had the Jewel Consultancy?
Well, I got my diplomas back in 2011, but I really didn't start the company until around 2013. And then it was just sort of a side thing because I was still practicing law. So it's really in the past 7 years that I really put a lot of my energy into it. That's what I'm doing.
So this is amazing. So the Jewel Consultancy coaching, mentoring, meditation, and soul readings.
Yes.
Let's talk about soul readings before we finish up here. Tell me about.
So I use psychic tarot oracle cards. And basically what I do is I heart connect with the first thing. And fall. Can heart connect, and I can feel people. I can their work with energy that I declare I'm not a psychic. It's not my deal, but I do have an ability to do this, and
I'm gonna have to get one. One of these days, I'm gonna have to get in there and get an appointment with you. I think that's just amazing. I think it's something that everybody should do. So let's wrap this up. So again, just to give you a bit. So Arlene, this amazing woman, it's Jewel Consultancy.com. And she is, like she said, coaching, mentoring, and soul reading, the whole bit. And it looks like, Arlene, you're on every single social platform. Is there one that you're more active on?
I am on LinkedIn. It's just a great platform for people to find people nowadays. But I guess mostly, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. I haven't been doing it a lot recently, but, that's Arlene Cohen Miller. I don't know anyone else with that name. So if you Google that, you'll find all the platforms that I'm on. And you can always come to my website. My phone number and my email address are there. And especially if you mention life-changing challengers, and you can always text me at 720-936-2634 because I know that you met me on this podcast, and I'm happy to chat with you.
Yes, please. You definitely need to reach out to her. Go on to jewelconsultancy.com. You can go through there, but you also have YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn is where she spends most of her time. So slide into her DMs. In the show notes, we will have all of those links directly on how to get in touch with Arlene. Just go to the show notes. You'll get a nice little summary of what this is all about, what we talked about. And then towards the bottom, you'll get all of her links, jewelconsultancy.com, YouTube, Arlene Miller, Instagram, all that stuff. So you can just do one click. You'll be there, slide into her DMs and, get a soul reading. Definitely get a soul reading. If you are watching on YouTube right now, why don't you go ahead and maybe hit that like button, the subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you always know the next time we drop a new episode. Also, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, if you can leave us a review, that'd be great. And I don't care if it's a good review. It could be a bad review because any feedback is just going to help me evolve the podcast. And as you can tell, over the last few episodes, it has been evolving. It's been kind of moving in a different direction. Still showing people like Arlene, exceptional people that have overcome adversity and in their own way and have taken that and multiplied their greatness. So if I'm sure Arlene has dropped a bunch of nuggets, and you know what how I feel about nuggets. If you've taken away one thing away from today, you've gotten one piece of information that helps you level up, we're successful. So so if you happen to watch it on YouTube, drop us a comment. Tell us the nugget you picked up. Spotify does comments now too, so drop us one there too. Just tell us what nugget you picked up and how you're going to use it. Then drop down to the show notes, hit jewelconsultancy.com, get yourself a soul reading, and talk to Arlene. But anyway, Arlene, thank you so much for joining us. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Okay, so challengers, listen, for myself and Arlene Cohen Miller, we will see you in the next one.